Hello students of class 11. Welcome back once again to your biology class. I think you all have done well in your midterm examination. So let us now concentrate and get ready for the post midterm. Our next chapter, which is there in the syllabus of the post midterm, is cell, that is the basic unit of life. You all know what is a cell. You have learnt about cell in the previous classes. What is a cell? A cell is the basic structural and functional organization of all living beings. And the branch of biology that deals with the structure and composition of the cells is known as cytology. Okay, cells are broadly classified into two types. One is the unicellular, another is the multicellular. You all know that Robert Hooke discovered cells. He found out honeycomb consisted of thick-walled or thick-celled box-like compartments, which he named as cells. From there, the starting of the word cell has come forward. So here in this chapter, we are going to learn about cell theory. The cell theory was put forward by Skeleton and Swan. What they did, they examined a large number of plant tissues and found that all plant tissues were composed of cells and these cells were of various types. And he concluded that the cells constitute the ultimate unit of all plant kingdom, of all plant tissues. So Skeleton and Swan, they combined their data. Different scientists came forward and different theories were put forward. So later on, Rudolf Virchow, another scientist, showed that the new cells develop by the division of the pre-existing cells. So the cell theory, which we understand now, it has two tenets. First is all living organisms are composed of the cells and their products. And number two, all cells arise from pre-existing cells. Okay. Now, there were few, everything has merit and demerits. There were exceptions and shortcomings of the cell theory. Though the cell theory is applicable to almost all the organisms, there are also certain exceptions and demerits. The viruses are exceptions to cell theory as they consist of nucleic acid core which is surrounded by a protein which is known as capsid, and they do not have the characteristics of living beings such as independent existence, self-reproduction, self-regulation, etc. Right? And the bacteria and the cyanobacteria, they do not have organized nucleus as well as membrane-bound cell organelle. And cell theory has not at all put focus about the xenocytic or multinucleate conditions of the organisms. So this was another exception. And apart from that, there were certain cells which lose their organelles, including nucleus, as the secondary adaptation. Example, you can give the RBC. They have no nucleus, mitochondria, endoplasmic reticulum, sieve tubes, they have no nucleus. And the cell theory that has not at all mentioned anything about the extracellular non-living material which is called as matrix. Okay, it is present in enormous quantity in the connective tissue that also has not been mentioned in the cell theory. Clear? Now, there are several doctrines or there are several components, or we can say the tenets of the modern cell theory. The modern cell theory, it has the different tenets like life exists only in the cells as all life functions are performed by the cells. The bodies of all living organisms or of all living beings are made up of cells and their products. The cell is made up of very small mass of protoplasm that usually contains a nucleus. And the cells are the unit of functions. That is, the life activities, we can say the life activities of an organism are the sum and the basic, or the sum total, we can say the sum total of all the functions of the cell. composing that organism. Okay, and the cells always, they arise from pre-existing cells by division, and they never arise, they basically resemble their parent cell, right? And all the present day cells, they have common ancestry, we can say, as they all have been derived from the first or the original cell. And the growth of the organism, it also involves the multiplication and growth of its component cells. So in this way, we can make a concept, or we can make components, or we can make the tenets of the cell theory. In unicellular organisms, it is made up of only one unit cell, and that single unit cell has to perform all the basic functions of the body, and it oxidizes the food materials and produce energy for the cell, and that cell exchanges these gases with the environment and throws out the metabolic wastes from the body, right? And each cell in an unicellular organism, they have its own lifespan, and it is programmed for its own death. But in case of multicellular organism, what happens? The cells do not normally have a total independent existence. They interact with the other cells and activities that are integrated for the survival of the organism, right? And by acquiring these specialized characters, or the specialized structure, we can say, structure and a function, and this entire the acquired specialized structure and function is known as differentiation. And the cells, they develop this division of labor. Division of labor means each and every organ of the body is specialized for performing different function. Your heart will only go on pumping, and your stomach will always go on eating, but vice versa does not take place. So as a result, the division of labor has been enormously distributed within the body of the multicellular organisms. Okay, now we come to the flow of energy. Flow of energy is unidirectional. It can neither be created nor can be destroyed. It can only be transferred from one form to the other form. The ultimate source of energy is the sun, or the sunlight. And when it comes on chlorophyll, when it falls on the chloroplast, what happens? The process of photosynthesis begins. The nutrient molecules are taken up by the plant along with the water, minerals, then carbon dioxide, and oxidation takes place within the cells. And as a result, what forms? The ATP molecules. In plants, it is glucose, and these ATP molecules are providing energy for the entire metabolic processes of the plant. Okay, the molecules, like if you think about the hormones now, the molecules of the hormones, they function as messengers, and they bring information from outside onto the cell. What happens? Some of these molecules, they enter the cell directly and regulate their functions. And different other molecules or hormones are also present, which are binding to the receptor molecules on the surface receptor, or on the surface cell receptor. And this type of binding brings about significant changes in the cellular functioning, right? And when we come about the plant tissues, the adjacent cells are connected to the protoplasmic bridges, which is known as plasmodesmata. An exchange of the materials between the cells occurs through these bridges. Okay, and the cells of the eukaryotic organisms, if you think about, they have a large number of intracellular compartments, each enclosed by membrane, which are called the membrane-bound cell organelles. Example, mitochondria, chloroplast. Now, what are the characteristics of the unicellular organisms? The unicellular organisms, they perform a large number of functions for their survival, as the multicellular organisms do. A sufficiently large volume of the cell, they determine the amount of the chemical activity of the cell, and a sufficiently large volume is accommodated to various cell organelles in it, and a large surface area is provided to carry out the metabolic functions of the organisms, of the unicellular organisms. When the cell grows, what happens is volume increases, its surface area increases, and but its surface area and the volume both are increasing, right? And when the cell is growing, its need for absorption and excretion is also increasing, but not to the same extent. Yes or no? And to maintain the stability or to maintain the uniform proportionality of the cell, certain cells, they have acquired certain additional structures. Like if you can think of an example of the microvilli. The microvilli, what it does, the microvilli increases the surface area for absorption. Okay, so in this manner, the unicellular organisms are providing its body metabolism. Now, what are the disadvantages of having this unicellularity? Since a single cell is carrying all the vital functions of life, the efficiency of the functioning cannot reach at a very high level. And the cell body, it cannot reach any larger size. Why? As the efficiency of the functioning is determined by the surface area volume ratio. And the cell has to spend a great amount of energy to deal with these problems of the environment, to adjust with the environment. And any injury to any particular cell will lead to death of the entire organism. Understood? Now, when it comes to the multicellular organisms, these multicellular organisms, their body consists of large number of cells. Now, what are the characteristics of these multicellular organisms? You know very well. Now, you have known about the disadvantages of unicellular organisms. What are the advantages of multicellular organism? Multicellularity, basically it ensures simultaneous and uninterrupted performance of all life functions at different cells and specialized for different functions. And the specialized or differentiated units, they become more efficient. Even if some cells are dead, the other living cells can multiply and replace the lost cell. Okay, and thus the organism does not die because of that. And dead cells, they also perform certain functions, like what? The bark cells of the plants, what they do? The skin of the animals, what they do? They perform protection. Although they are the dead cells, still then they give protection to the plant and the animal. And apart from that, the xylem vessels and tracheids, they are helping in the conduction of the food and the materials. Like that way, the multicellularity also has some disadvantages. What are that? Number one, if you can think about certain specialized cells, they have lost their power of division, and so they cannot be replaced by division when damaged. Like neurons, it cannot be replaced. Multicellular organisms, they have a reduced power of regeneration. They cannot regenerate. And since some of the specialized cells lose their basic functions, they become short-lived and their replacement consumes the considerable amount of energy. Okay. There are three kinds of cells in multicellular organism: undifferentiated cell, dedifferentiated cell, and differentiated cells. Okay. Undifferentiated cells, like the meristematic cells of the plasma, the stem cells of the animals, some of which are like the bone marrow, you can say, the germinal epithelium, the zygote that forms the organism, the Malpighian layer of the cells. These are undifferentiated cells. And differentiated cells are the post-mitotic cells which have undergone differentiation, that is, which have undergone specializations in the structure and function, and they have normally lost their power of division. Differentiation, it bestows certain benefits on the multicellular organisms, like increased survival, increased specialization and efficiency, uninterrupted life activities, and a proper balance between the cell surface and the area volume ratio. Okay, another is the dedifferentiated cells. What are these? Dedifferentiation, what is that? This is a process by which the differentiated or permanent or the specialized cells, they lose their specialization and become undifferentiated and get back the power of division. This type of cells help in the healing of any type of wound, regeneration, secondary growth, etc. Okay, next is cellular totipotency. What is cellular totipotency? So you can define cellular totipotency as the ability of the living nucleated cell to divide and redivide and differentiate into any type of cell and regenerate any part or the whole organism from which it has been taken. Okay, a cell, when you can say as a cell is totipotent. A cell is totipotent, we can say as it has a full genetic information in its nucleus. Okay, and it can give its expression as and when required. Next, you know what are the prokaryotic cells? The cells which lack the nuclear membrane and other membrane bound cell organelles are called prokaryotic cells. Okay, and what are I'm coming later on to eukaryotic cells. And in prokaryotic cell, the nuclear material is concentrated at a particular site, and it is not bounded by any membrane, and that is known as nucleoid or incipient nucleus. And the cells here are generally very small, right? And mycoplasmas are the smallest living cells which are known till date. And when it comes to the eukaryotic cells, they are found in all the organisms belonging to different kingdoms like Protista, Plantae, Fungi, Animalia, etc. They have a very well defined nucleus with nuclear membrane, and other membrane bound cell organelles are also present. And every eukaryotic cell, it has a boundary of cell membrane or plasma membrane or plasma leva. Okay, and it encloses the living jelly like substance which is known as the protoplasm. A cell has functionally three regions: the cell membrane, cytoplasm, and nucleus. These are the basic structure or basic functional regions, we can say, of the cell. Next, you have to know about cell wall. Cell wall, how you can define? It is a non-living, rigid envelope which is outer to the cell membrane, or it is outer to the cell membrane in case of plant cells. And fungi, certain protist bacteria and cyanobacteria, this cell wall is present. Now you have to know how cell wall is formed or formation of the cell wall. Cell wall basically is formed during the process of cytokinesis of plant cells. The division takes place by the cell plate formation. The phragmoplast, which is secreted by the Golgi bodies, and the endoplasmic reticulum, they line up at a regular equator type of structure, and they later fuse to form a cell plate. And the cell plate, it grows towards the peripheral region or the cell wall and forms the middle lamella and the cell wall. So the layers of the cell wall are middle lamella, primary cell wall, secondary cell wall, tertiary cell wall. Now what is plasmodesmata? Plasmodesmata are the cytoplasmic bridges which is present between the adjacent cells, which is lined internally, we can say, by all the membranes. They often possess endoplasmic reticulum, which is known as desmotubules. The plasmodesmata, they maintain continuity of the living matter among cells and the cytoplasm. In such condition, it is known as symplasm. Okay, now what are pits? Pits are the areas on the cell wall where the secondary cell wall is not laid down. Generally, pits in the walls of the adjacent cell, they lie opposite to each other, and so they are described as pit pairs. Now, what are the functions of the cell wall? Number one, it provides rigidity and shape to the cell. Number two, it protects the cell from mechanical injury and also from the attack of the pathogens. Number three, it helps the aerial parts of the plant to counteract the effect of gravity and grow erect and expand their leaves. By its expansion, it allows the cells to grow. It prevents undue expansion of the cell and prevent bursting of the cell. Cutin and suberin, which is present on the wall, it prevents loss of water from the cell surfaces. And different types of the cell wall, which is present in the xylem, trachea, and the vessel, they help the water to move up as a column by the adhesive force. Now, what is glycocalyx? The animal cells, they do not have a cell wall, but they have an extracellular matrix, which is known as glycocalyx. There are three types of glycoproteins, that is oligosaccharide type of structures, which is covalently bonded to this protein. Three types of ECM or extracellular matrix are the collagen, the proteoglycans, and the fibronectins. And from here, collagen is the most abundant glycoprotein which is present in the glycocalyx. And what are the functions of the glycocalyx? The glycocalyx, it provides protection to the cell membrane and also to the cell, maintains the shape of the cell, helps in the recognition of the other similar cells for the tissue formation. They help the cells adhere to each other in the tissues. They're keeping the cells adhered. And in white blood cells, it helps in identifying the microbes for defense. In red blood corpuscles, the ECM has antigen that forms the basis of the blood groups. And it transmits the changes in the cell's exterior to its interior. Okay. Till this much today. We will start from the plasma membrane in our next class. Thank you.